All right, let's talk about a stimulus update now because we have some movement this morning from Democrats on Capitol Hill. So specifically, if you're asking this question this morning, will we see another round of stimulus? Democrats, you got to think about this for a second. Just take a 30,000 foot view here a second, okay, before we get into the nitty gritty of this. Democrats are being crushed right now. They are hurting. And one way to really improve your stead, especially as we run into the midterms, right, and especially as inflation is running rampant and we're seeing all of this horrible data coming out about rent increases and mortgage foreclosures and runaway cost of consumer goods, you want a win, you want a victory. And look at this poll out this morning. There's a new poll out from Gallup on Democrats, just how much trouble they are actually in. This poll shows just how much trouble Democrats are in. Here is the new Gallup poll. It shows just a huge shift in the number of people who would actually identify themselves as a Democrat or Republican. This is the biggest shift since Gallup has been tracking this data. A shift away from 47% of Americans now identify with the Republican Party, 42% with the Democrats. One party doing a tad better than the other is not a big deal, but these Gallup numbers show a political earthquake that's unfolding. And we're going to get to Supreme Court Justice Breyer, who probably knew that this was coming and why Democrats would probably lose in the fall. So maybe that's why he's announcing his retirement. But right now, between 5 and 6 points is kind of like where the swing is. But when you have a swing of this high,
within 1 year, if you look back at that graph, the first data point there is the first quarter of 2021 when President Biden was elected.
Right.
So he had quite a favorable party line, and he's lost it by 7 points, creating gains for the opposition. It's not just some of them fell off and don't register as one or the other. They specifically have flipped to the other side.
Right. So now you have Democrats that are saying, Senator Ben Cardin this morning specifically, and coming out with another Democrat who didn't want to be named because they don't want their name out there in the press on this, basically saying, trying to remain anonymous, said that Senator Joe Manchin is still in this driver's seat. So if you're wondering who's driving this narrative, it's still Senator Joe Manchin. And they said, but we got to sit down with him. Make no mistake about it. If you think that he's not in charge, you don't think Joe Manchin's in charge, you're lying. He is driving all of this discussion right now. We need to sit down with him, Senator Cardin says, and we need to build a winning bill. We need to basically scrap the Build Back Better idea. Nancy Pelosi saying now this morning that we need to come up with a new name because, they love to have names for these things.
It's all about branding.
Yeah, it is. And Senator Cardin says we need to have a bill that can get 50 Democratic votes. Senator Coons, we featured him here yesterday on the show. He says he supports starting talks all over again, and they need to come up with a fresh name on all of this. They need to come up with a fresh name. Can't be Build Back Better, and it's got to be something that can bring Joe Manchin to the table specifically. I mean, he said that he's not supporting. He does support pre-kindergarten, right? He does support pre-kindergarten. He might want to see the child tax credit involved because, and Republicans are on board for the child tax credit also because it comes across as a tax cut, right? So the child tax credit, it's not like free money, it's a tax cut, and Republicans are on board for that. But I don't think he's really a support of maybe the income gap or the income cap overall when you could have credit, when you can take advantage of this, the child tax credit, like there'd have to be an income cap.
Right. That's one of the things that Republicans have been talking about is how a lot of the Democratic spending in the first year of the Biden administration was not means tested. And so plenty of people got stimulus or, any type of stimulus payments who didn't need it. And then the media proceeded to shame people who got it and did not need it, even though they never asked for it, right? So there was a lot of blank checks, a lot of money that was not means tested being sent around. There are a lot of ways to send money that is a bit more means tested, but the Democratic Party didn't seem to want to be bothered by that. But then they're bothered that there's inflation as a result of all kinds of spending. It's kind of perplexing. Another big thing is that their party line has now become, if you are a Democrat, you stand for what? Vaccine mandates, closures as a result of COVID. Lockdowns of schools specifically, right? And there are plenty of people who liked voting Democratic before who don't want those things, who now say, look, the science is more along the lines of this turning endemic. It seems to be going this way. We don't want to align ourselves with this anymore because it's hurting certain populations, and that makes you a bad Democrat. Well, then I don't want to be a Democrat.
Well, it's interesting because I guess if you supported those positions, it's one thing. Like, okay, government, we're going to go into a lockdown. You're telling us, you're seeing this data. This is what we need to do. We need to go into a lockdown to protect our families. I need to shut my business. All right, I'm going to be a good patriot. I'm going to shut my business down, right?
Yeah.
You're going to support us then, right? Because this is like eminent domain, right? You're going to build a highway over my house, so you need to pay me for my house. So you're going to shut down my business. You're making me shut down my business. Then you got to pony up some money to make sure that I can actually feed my family and I don't lose my business as a result.
No, that didn't happen. That didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
And if so
no wonder there's this big swing. I mean, if you want to trace like why suddenly those people who were so quote unquote good Democrats who went along with this
now all of a sudden lose their child tax credit. As of just a few days ago, the January one did not go out. It's done. December 15th was the last time. Any kind of other gimme that we thought the government would have did not happen. And we got like, oh, that's nice. Infrastructure bill,
Right.
That's so some people will get clean water. This is not really the miracle we were hoping for. If you got excited about the Biden administration.
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
If you look at how they handled the payroll protection, I mean, that was like supposed to be the big like, well, we're helping you out, we're shutting down your businesses, so here's the help we're giving you. But it didn't go to the right people. It went to people.
No.
It went to the businesses that were like, it so much of it went to like these large Wall Street firms that then just held on to that money, and so
Yes.
it went to the wrong
Yeah.
people. So it's like exactly, it's like the whole thing has been a debacle.
And that money, it would have been nice if that money actually went to those Wall Street firms and they hired people or they put it towards research and development to advance civilization. But
Yeah,
what did
that's-
they do? No, they bought their own shares back, right? Which is largely seen as a way to artificially inflate the price of your stock, right? And then they also paid out huge bonuses for businesses, for their CEOs, right?
Yes.
So golden parachutes and all of these executives saw massive increases in pay. But yeah, hiring people, research and development, no, that's not what happened.
No, I mean, you were supposed to hire more people or use it to pay payroll, or else it was a 1% loan. Many businesses are like, fine, we'll take a 1% loan we couldn't get before. Thanks.
Right.
Right. And there were many banks that were told, don't even process applications for anything less than 100,000, 200,000, $1 million. So what small business has $1 million a month payroll, right? So it was not really even intended for that. It went straight to the Kennedy Center. There were plenty of, in those stimulus bills, there was money specifically for the Kennedy Center when, like, why couldn't they get in line, right? Why did they get a straight line access to taxpayer money during a pandemic? It was very perplexing. So Democrats have had their chance to control the checkbook, and I don't think many people are very impressed with what they did with it.
Right. And, there's a study out this morning that shows that Bloomberg has this new research note out this morning about the U.S., Britain, and other populous nations mishandled the pandemic, according to this study out this morning. Basically saying, like, if you see the chart here, like populist governments who had double the mortality rate in 2020. These were governments that was just sort of loosey-goosey with the lockdown measures. And Britain specifically, and hey, we don't think that this thing exists. This, go ahead and live your life, etc. And mishandled it. So there could be some real significant data that shows that yes, maybe lockdowns, maybe actually closing businesses, keeping people from interacting or social distancing was the best way to handle this. But apparently, those countries that sort of poo-pooed this idea, according to this research note, saying that this actually led to a higher mortality rate.
Or did it in half measure. There was plenty of we're locked down, but we're not locked down. The United States never had a proper lockdown.
Right.
At least not across the board. And not one that had one rule for everybody. Of course not.
Right.
It was different rules for everybody.
It was a 15 days under Trump, and it really wasn't, up until Easter, and it really wasn't a lockdown. It was like a bunch of different half measures. People didn't know what to do. On the one hand, I close this business, but this business is open. Like
Yeah.
church gatherings are open, but I can't go to get dry cleaning. Like, well, does it make any sense? So yeah, just anyway. So Democrats, it's easy to see this graph though. It's easy to understand how Democrats are, people who identified as Democrats are flipping. And this is exactly why I think we're going to see, if you were to ask me today, like, will we see some sort of a stimulus package? My answer is going to be yes. My answer is going to be yes. It's going to be smaller. It's going to be something that includes adult, tax credits. It's going to be something that has these child tax credits, pre-kindergarten, and maybe some kind of community college incentive. Beyond that, don't count. I mean, the last time we got a check was like $1,400 stimulus check. I mean, don't count on that to be coming in the mail anytime soon.
No. Direct money? No.
Yeah.
I don't think so either.